Jake was finally alone. After 3 long weeks of travel through alien ports, rough starships, and noisy marketplaces, he had reached his new home on the desert planet Saharos. The air was hot, dry, and always smelled like burned sandbutt at least the rent was cheap. He had rented a small room in an alien apartment block run by a local woman named Zara. She was tall, with sandy skin, wide yellow eyes, and a thick tail that swayed when she walked. She had spoken to him only once during check-in. No loud music, no food from Earth, and no strange activities in the bathroom, she warned coldly. Jake didn't ask what strange meant. He was too tired to argue. Now, 2 days later, he stood in the small bathroom of his room, steam rising around him as he stepped out of the shower. The water was lukewarm, but after living in space stations, it felt like heaven. Jake hummed a song softly and grabbed the thin towel hanging nearby. It barely covered his lower half, but he didn't care. He was alone. He felt safe. Then slam. The door burst open. Zara stood in the doorway, eyes wide, mouth open. Her pupils shrank into slits as she stared straight at Jake's towel. Her whole body froze. Jake jumped, nearly dropping the towel. "What the hell?" Zara gasped. "By the sands of the great worm. What is that?" She pointed, trembling, at the bulge under Jake's towel. Her voice rose in fear and shock. "Human! Why do you have a mini shy hulud between your legs?" Jake blinked. "A what now?" She screamed and slammed the door shut, her tail thrashing behind her. Footsteps ran down the hallway, followed by the sound of a communicator being activated. Jake stood still for several seconds, dripping wet, towel barely hanging on. What the hell just happened? He whispered to himself. 10 minutes later, Jake had put on clothes and was drying his hair when he heard shouting outside. He peeked through the tiny window and his heart dropped. 3 alien officers were standing in front of the apartment building. They wore armored suits and carried glowing rods that pulsed with blue energy. Zara pointed up at Jake's window, yelling something in her native language. "Oh no," Jake muttered. "This is bad." The door to his room shook violently. Bang! 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 "Human male, open the door at once." A voice boomed from outside. Jake slowly opened it, hands raised. "I didn't do anything." One of the officers stepped forward, holding a strange scanning device. It beeped rapidly when pointed at Jake's waist. "There it is," the officer said. "It's real." Jake looked down. "You mean me? You think that's a creature?" Zara pushed her way forward, keeping a safe distance. "It moved. I saw it move under the towel. That's a desert worm baby. It could grow and eat us all." Jake felt his face turning red. That's not a worm. That's part of me. That's how humans are." The alien stared at him like he was crazy. "Impossible," one said. "No intelligent species would keep such a thing outside the body." Another officer nodded. "It must be a parasite. We have to remove it." "Remove it," Jake shouted. "No, you're not cutting off anything." The lead officer raised a finger. "You are coming with us, human, for examination. If the creature is dangerous, it must be destroyed." "I am the creature," Jake cried. "It's not dangerous. It's just human." But they didn't listen. Jake was taken to a strange alien facility. Bright lights, white walls, long metal tables. He sat in a cold chair, hands cuffed. A scientist walked in, a short alien with 4 eyes and a wrinkled face. "So, you are the one carrying the mini shy hulud," he said, writing notes on a floating screen. "Fascinating." "It's not a mini anything," Jake said. "It's just a never mind. Why am I here?" "You may be hosting a dangerous species," the scientist said calmly. "We will perform a small dissection to study the creature." Jake's jaw dropped. "Dissection? While I'm alive?" The scientist smiled politely. "We will give you something to sleep, hopefully." Jake felt the blood leave his face. He looked around the room. No windows, no weapons. No hope. Someone help me. He whispered back at the apartment. Zara sat alone, holding a glass of thick sand juice. She stared at the wall, confused and shaken. Was the human telling the truth? Could that strange thing really be part of his body? She had never seen anything like it in her life, but something about the way he shouted, the fear in his eyes. She stood up. I need to know the truth. She grabbed her coat and walked toward the door. She had no idea that this simple human might not just be strange, but might change her entire world. Zara couldn't sleep. She sat in the dark. Her long tail curled tightly around her legs. Image of the human male flashed again and again in her mind. Not his face, not his eyes, that thing under his towel. What if it really is a creature? She whispered to herself. What if it grows? What if it bites? She had lived near the sand pits her entire life. She had seen young shy hulids tear through stone and swallow small hoverbikes whole. No one survived their attack, ever. And now one might be living in her building. Between a human's legs. Suddenly, a knock on the door. No, it was not a knock. It was the buzz of a communicator, urgent and loud. She opened the door to a messenger drone. The hologram flickered on. This is Officer Care. We have the human male in custody. The examination begins at sunrise. Zara's heart sank. In the alien lab, Jake sat tied to a cold metal chair. His hands were strapped down, his shirt removed, and his pants cut open at the waist. A blue light scanned his lower body slowly, humming. I can't believe this, Jake muttered. The alien scientist circled him like a vulture. This creature between your legs, the scientist said, tapping a notepad. It is not responding to external stimuli. Perhaps it is dead? Jake groaned. It's not dead, it's just embarrassed. A second alien leaned in with a thin silver rod. Should we poke it? Jake's eyes widened in horror. Nitrogen monoxide, do not poke it. Suddenly, the scanning light turned red. A loud beep echoed through the room. Warning, unknown life form detected. The scientist's face lit up. It is alive. I told you, it's not a separate life form, Jake yelled. That's part of me. It's natural. It's normal. For humans. But the aliens didn't understand. They had never seen a species carry such a strange organ outside their body. We must act quickly, the older scientist said. If it lays eggs, they could infest the entire planet. Jake almost fainted. Meanwhile, Zara walked through the underground station, her hood pulled low. She didn't want to be seen. She was known here, respected. But right now, she wasn't acting as a landlady. She was acting on instinct. Something's wrong. She thought. She reached a locked door marked biological containment. The guards crossed their weapons in front of her. You cannot enter. I own the building where the creature was found, she said firmly. If it came from my home, I have the right to see it. The guards looked at each other. One of them hesitated. Only for 5 minutes. They let her in. Jake looked up as the door opened and nearly cried in relief. Zara, he shouted. Tell them I'm not infected. Tell them that's just how humans are. She walked closer, eyes cautious. Is it true? She asked softly. That thing is part of you? Jake nodded, sweating. Yes, it's part of my body. It's not dangerous. She looked at the scanner again. Then why did the machine call it a life form? Jake paused. Because it is alive. I mean, it has reactions, emotions, blood. But it's not separate from me, Zara blinked. So, it's like a tale? Jake sighed. Yes, a very important personal tale. She stepped closer. The room was silent. Then Zara turned to the scientist. He's telling the truth, the scientist frowned. You saw it yourself. It moved. It tried to rise when he spoke. Jake blushed hard. Because it reacts to stress. Zara raised her hand. You can't cut him open. You'll kill him. The scientist leaned closer to Zara and whispered, if he is not lying, then he is unique. You should not be protecting him. You should be claiming him. What? Zara asked, stepping back. His biology is rare. He may even be a lost key to ancient desert genetics. If he bonds, he could change your bloodline. Zara stared at Jake. Jake stared back. What's going on? The scientist smiled. Either you help us keep him for study, or you take full responsibility for his worm. Zara froze. Take full responsibility? That meant ownership. Protection. Even possibly. Jake stood there helpless, cuffed to the table. What do I do now? Zara whispered. She didn't know it yet, but this moment would change her forever. And the human's mini Shai Hulud wasn't the only thing awakening on this planet. The desert moons rose high above the horizon, casting silver light across Zara's quiet apartment complex. The sand winds whispered through the streets like old spirits, but inside the science facility, Jake screamed, you can't just cut IT off. I need that to survive. A robotic arm hovered above him, its laser tool blinking red. The scientist adjusted his goggles. We will be gentle, mostly. Jake thrashed in the restraints. What is wrong with you people? This is insane. Across the lab, another assistant checked the paperwork. Dissection approved, scheduled for sunrise. Target, external parasite coding name Mini Shai Hulud. The assistant paused. Note, the specimen shows emotional connection to host. Jake's eyes filled with panic. It's not a specimen, it's me. It's mine. No one listened. Far across the city, Zara stood in front of a sealed vault deep beneath the sand palace. A golden door loomed before her, etched with symbols of her bloodline. She placed her hand on the scanner. The light flashed green. Access granted. Heir to the desert throne. The door slid open, and warm air rushed out, carrying the scent of ancient scrolls and forgotten technology. Zara stepped inside. She had not been here since she was a child. In the corner of the chamber stood a crystal archive. Glowing softly, it pulsed like a heartbeat. She activated it. Desert Lore. Chapter 7. Human Hybrids and the Forbidden Line. Her hands shook as the hologram began to speak in an old voice. In the time before sandstorms ruled the skies, there existed a two-legged species from the stars. Their males carried the seed of chaos, unpredictable, stubborn, and powerful. The ancient queens feared their mating ways, but some desired them. Zara leaned in. The image showed a primitive human male, naked, wild, dangerous, and between his legs, something oddly familiar. They called it the sand beast's echo. Not quite a worm. Not quite tame, Zara whispered, so it's not just him. Back at the lab, Jake had stopped screaming. He lay still, sweating, breathing fast. The scientist tapped a timer. 2 hours until sunrise. Prepare for incision. Jake muttered, this is how I die, on an alien table, with a laser aimed at my crash. The door burst open. Zara stormed in, her cloak flying behind her like a sandstorm wave. I'm taking him, she declared. The guards raised their weapons. By whose authority? She pulled out an old ring, golden, shaped like a coiled desert serpent. By royal bloodline. The scientist's eyes widened. You're a royal. Zara stepped forward. More than that, I'm his guardian now. Touch him again, and your lab becomes a crater. Jake looked up weakly. Zara? She turned to him. You have no idea what kind of mess you are. Then she pointed at the restraints. Release him. Reluctantly, the lab techs obeyed. Jake fell into her arms, legs weak. I think they almost removed my future. She pulled him close. You're safe now, but we have to move. Fast. Outside, the sun was beginning to rise. Hover drones flew. overhead, scanning for fugitives. Jake and Zara slipped into the back of a supply truck. The engine roared as they vanished into the desert, leaving the city behind. Inside the truck, Jake leaned against a crate and looked at her. "You saved me." Zara didn't answer right away. Finally she said, "Not because I like you." "Not yet." Jake chuckled, still sore. "Then why?" She stared at the horizon. "Because the last time humans came to this planet, they didn't leave peacefully. And if what I just saw in the archives is true..." She looked down at him. "You might be the reason everything changes." Jake blinked. "Wait, is this still about my..." Zara snapped. "Just sleep." Jake sighed, closing his eyes. But deep in Zara's mind, one truth echoed like thunder in the dunes. The human wasn't a mistake. He was returning, and the desert was waiting for him. The morning news exploded like a firestorm. Across the planet Saharos, holographic ads blinked across city domes, desert outposts, and traveler screens. Wanted. Human male hosting unidentified dessert worm reward. 5,000 credits. And beside the headline, Jake's confused, half-naked face. Holding a towel, Zara stared at the glowing poster inside a dusty fuel station. She whispered, "You're famous now." Jake sat beside her, hood up, trying to eat something that looked like squashed cactus paste. "I didn't ask to be famous. I just wanted a hot shower." He paused, then added, "Without a crowd." Outside, bounty hunters had already begun patrolling nearby sectors. Hoverbikes, plasma nets. Some even brought live bait worms, thinking they could lure out the parasite. Zara muttered, "Idiots, it's not even a worm." Jake glanced at her. "You're still talking about that, aren't you?" She didn't answer. She was too focused, too tense. Her claws tapped against her belt. "What's the plan?" Jake asked. She turned to him. "We can't stay in cities. Your face is everywhere." "My royal status won't help us anymore," Jake sighed. "So we run?" "No." She leaned in closer. "We go down." Jake blinked. "Down where?" 2 hours later, they stood at the edge of a massive sinkhole, the mouth of the dunes, a collapsed pit that once housed one of the ancient sand clans. Jake stared into the darkness. "That's not a tunnel, that's a grave." Zara pulled a rope from her pack. "It's also the only place bounty hunters won't follow. The tribes below are dangerous." "Dangerous how?" "They eat outsiders," she said casually. Tying the rope. Jake gulped. Still, they descended. The tunnels below were huge, dark, warm, and filled with strange symbols etched into the rock. Some walls pulsed faintly with ancient energy. Others dripped with yellow water. As they walked, Jake felt something shift in the air. "Are we alone down here?" he asked. "No," Zara whispered. "We're being watched." Before Jake could ask more, a net dropped from the ceiling, tight, sticky, glowing with electric threads. Zap! Jake was trapped instantly. From the shadows, figures emerged, cloaked, armored, their faces hidden by bone masks. The leader stepped forward, his voice echoing strangely. "He carries the seed." Zara raised her hands. "We don't want trouble." "You brought him here," the masked figure said. "The sand speaks of his return." Jake groaned, still tangled. "Can the sand also say not to wrap me in burning rope?" The figure stepped closer and bent near Jake's face. "You don't understand what you are, human. Your kind were bred in secret. Long ago. You are not the first." Jake blinked. "Wait. There were other humans here before me?" Zara's tail twitched out. The figure nodded. "Yes, and they all died, but not before changing everything." Suddenly, another figure shouted in the distance, loud, panicked. "Bounty hunters! They followed them down here." The leader cursed in his tongue. "You brought the surface filth into our sacred tunnels." Weapons were drawn. Bright lights lit up the cave entrance. Jake shouted, "We didn't mean to." "They're chasing me." Zara reached into her cloak and threw a smoke crystal to the ground. Boom! Dust and shadow filled the air. "Run!" she screamed, grabbing Jake. They sprinted through the tunnels as lasers blasted behind them. Rocks exploded. Bones shattered. The ancient tomb trembled. Jake gasped. "This isn't running anymore. This is escaping death." Zara pulled him into a tight gap between two glowing pillars. "Shut up and move." They finally reached a hidden chamber. It was round, warm. The ceiling shimmered with golden sand crystal lights. In the center was a pool of glowing water, silent, sacred. Zara locked the door behind them, her chest heaving. Jake fell to the floor. "That's it. I'm never showering again." Zara ignored him. Her eyes were locked on the pool. "Do you know what this is?" she asked. Jake shook his head. "This is the pool of memory. It belongs to the desert itself. If you touch it, it will show you your past." Jake blinked. "I already know my past." "No," Zara said softly. "You only know what Earth told you. The desert remembers the rest." Jake stepped toward the pool. His reflection rippled. Then something under the surface moved. The pool spoke, not with words, but with visions. As Jake touched the glowing surface, images crashed into his mind like a sandstorm. Ancient humans standing beside desert queens. Flames, blood, screaming children. A human man surrounded by alien warriors, his body glowing like fire. And something beneath the sand rising toward the stars. Jake fell back, gasping. "What was that?" Zara helped him sit. "The pool showed you the truth. Your kind has been here before. You're not the first human to change our world." Jake wiped sweat from his face. "But why me?" She looked at him calmly. "Because your body carries a signal. And now the whole desert feels it." Suddenly, the door behind them rattled. A voice shouted, "By order of the Queen's Guard, surrender the human or face vaporization." Zara's eyes widened. "They've found us." Jake stood up, panicked. "I thought this place was hidden." "It was, but the pool marked you. Now the sand guides them straight to you." Jake stepped back. "So what do we do? Fight? Run?" Zara shook her head. "No, there's only one way left now." She turned and pointed to the hole in the chamber floor round, deep and pulsing with heat. "You must enter the pit of proving." Jake looked down into the hole, then back at her. "You want me to jump into that?" Zara stepped closer. "If the pit accepts you, you will be seen as bonded to the sands. If not, it will consume you." Jake's mouth dropped open. "I like 0% of those options." Zara's voice turned soft. "Jake, this is the only way you'll ever be safe again." The guards outside began charging up their weapons. The sound of humming power filled the air. Jake looked at the pit again. Hot wind blew from below, brushing his legs like invisible hands. "Do I at least get a sword or something?" He muttered. "No," Zara said. "Just your mini shy hulud." Jake stared at her. "Not funny." Zara gave him the smallest smile. "Go, I'll keep them busy." Jake climbed into the pit. The moment his feet touched the first step, the walls lit up with strange glowing symbols. The ground trembled. The air grew thicker. He went deeper. At the bottom of the pit was a glowing circle of sand, shaped like a perfect spiral. It pulsed. It breathed. Jake stepped into it. Suddenly, the sand shot upward like a wave and wrapped around him, covering his legs, arms, chest, everything except his face. He couldn't move. Then it spoke. Not with a voice, but straight into his mind. "Do you carry the spirit of the first flame? Do you offer your seed to the sands? Will you bond with the blood of the dunes?" Jake tried to speak but couldn't. Then he remembered Zara's words. The desert doesn't listen to words. It listens to truth. He closed his eyes. He thought about survival, about being misunderstood, about Zara risking everything for him, the sand, Reacted. It loosened. It dropped him gently to the floor. The spiral under him turned golden. The pit had accepted him. Back in the chamber above, Zara stood between the lab soldiers and the pit entrance. Lead officer barked, "Step aside. That creature may have infected her." But before anyone could move, the pit exploded in light. Jake rose slowly from the hole, surrounded by golden dust. His skin shimmered. His breath came in strong waves. Zara stared. So did the guards. The officer lowered his weapon. He passed the trial? Zara stepped forward. Yes, he's bonded now. He's no longer just a human. Jake raised a hand. The sands responded, rising, dancing around him like tiny dragons. He looked at the guards. Now, are we done? They didn't answer. They just turned and fled. That night, Jake and Zara stood at the edge of the pit, staring into the stars. "You're not the same," she whispered. Jake looked at his hands. "I don't feel the same." She looked at him. "Seriously. From now on, you carry more than just your strange earth biology. You carry a mark the whole desert will feel." Jake nodded. "And they still think my anatomy is a worm," Zara smirked. "Well, it did save your life." Jake chuckled. But deep down he knew this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. The sand whispered a name the wind hadn't spoken in years. Zara. But not just Zara the landlady. Not Zara the woman who saved a strange human from being cut open. No. This was Zara of the Golden Line, daughter of the Desert Queen, heir to a throne made of bone, blood, and endless dunes. And Jake had no idea they were riding across the dark side of the desert, hidden in an old crawler transport. Jake leaned against the window, still glowing faintly from the pit's acceptance. "I don't get it," he said, looking at Zara. "Why did the guards run away after the sand chose?" "Emmy?" Zara didn't answer. "Zara?" He asked again. She gripped the controls tightly. "Because the desert only chooses those of royal bond. The pit knows blood, spirit, legacy." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Royal bond? What does that mean?" She hesitated. Then, quietly, she said, "It means I lied to you." Jake sat up. "About what?" Zara took a breath. "I'm not just a landlady. I'm the daughter of Queen Ashtari, the last ruler of the desert clans. I ran away 10 years ago." Jake blinked. "Wait, you're a princess?" She glanced at him. Technically, a fugitive one. Back in the royal city, Queen Ashtari stood in her throne chamber, tall and fierce. Her face was covered in golden markings that shimmered like the sun. Servants knelt in silence. A messenger approached and bowed. "My queen, it is confirmed. The pit has accepted the human." The queen's eyes narrowed. "Then he is not just some mistake. He is a sign." She walked to a large map carved into the wall. "And my daughter?" she asked coldly. The messenger hesitated. "She is with him." The queen turned slowly. "Send the bloodhounds. I want them both alive." Back in the crawler, Jake was still trying to process everything. "So, you're royalty. You live in a giant palace. You probably have servants and guards." And Zara cut him off. "No, I had those things, but I left it all behind." "Why?" "Because my mother wanted to control me. To force me to marry a royal warrior. To keep our bloodline pure." Jake looked at her quietly. "So you ran?" Zara nodded. "I didn't want a cold life of power. I wanted freedom." Jake leaned back, thinking. "Then you met me. A weird, confused, unclothed earth guy, and saved my life." She looked at him and smirked. "That's not exactly how I imagined my rebel story would go." They both laughed. But only for a moment. Then, the crawler shook. Boom. The scanner flashed red. Zara's face went pale. "No." Jake looked at the radar. "What is it?" she whispered. "The Queen's bloodhounds." Outside, the sand exploded as monstrous desert. Beasts with long legs and glowing eyes chased them. Atop each one rode a hunter in black armor, armed with acid spears and bone blades. Jake's jaw dropped. What the hell are those things? Zara swerved the crawler. Death, very fast death. One bloodhound leapt and slammed into the side of the vehicle. Metal tore. Sparks flew. Jake grabbed a plasma torch. Tell me I'm allowed to fight back. You're more than allowed, Zara said. You're expected. Jake smiled. Now we're talking. They fought side by side, Zara slashing with twin blades, Jake using the crawler's tools like weapons. One of the bloodhounds burst into green fire, but more kept coming. Suddenly, a voice echoed from a loudspeaker in the sky. Zara of the Golden Line, you have broken royal law. Your mother demands your return. Zara stood tall on the crawler. Roof, tell her I'm not her puppet anymore. Jake pulled her back down as a spear flew past. We need to go now, he shouted. She hit a button on the dashboard. A secret booster lit up. The crawler launched forward like a shooting star. The hunters vanished in the dust. Behind them for now. As they reached the safety of the rocky hills, Jake turned to Zara. What will you do if your mother catches you? She looked at him seriously. I'll fight her. Jake raised an eyebrow. Even if it means war? She nodded slowly. She wanted me to marry a warrior to protect the royal bloodline. But maybe the desert chose a different protector. Jake blinked. Wait, me? She didn't answer, but the look in her eyes said enough. The galaxy's last defense was between Jake's legs. He didn't know it yet. Neither did Zara. But the ancient weapons hidden beneath the sand, sealed for 10,000 years, could only be unlocked by one specific genetic code. And Jake's strange human worm? It wasn't just a joke anymore. The sky above Saharos turned red. Queen Ashtari stood atop her golden palace, eyes locked on the incoming fleet of shadow ships. They weren't from this world. They weren't from any world. They were the Voidkin creatures of space and silence. They have returned, she whispered. The old war was never over. Behind her, generals panicked. We have no weapons strong enough. The planetary shield won't last an hour. The queen clenched her jaw. Where is Zara? No one answered. Far away, in the rocky outskirts, Jake and Zara watched the sky burn. Jake held a blade in one hand, Zara's hand in the other. What's happening? He asked. She stared at the dark clouds. A war that should have stayed. Buried is rising again, Jake sighed. Of course. Right when things were getting normal. Suddenly, the ground below them cracked open, revealing a glowing staircase, ancient and alive. The pool, the pit, the prophecy, all of it had led here. Zara's voice trembled. It's calling you. Jake swallowed hard. Do I get to know? Why now? Zara nodded slowly. The ancient queens built a final weapon, one that required something no alien male could offer. It needed a creature with a bond to life, chaos, and love. Jake blinked. What does that even mean? She looked down at him. It needed a human. It needed you. They descended into the earth. Below was a massive chamber made of glowing bone and crystal sand. At the center, a throne of stone coiled in spirals, alive, vibrating, humming with buried energy. Symbols lit up as Jake approached. Genetic match confirmed. Activation ready. Zara backed up, stunned. This place, it's not just a weapon. It's a living machine. Jake looked around, and it responds too. He looked down, then back at her. Oh, come on, really? Zara nodded seriously. Yes, you must bond with the throne. Jake scratched his head. That sounds really personal. Jake, Zara said, placing her hand on his chest. You have the only key the galaxy needs. Jake sighed. You mean my... Yes, she cut in. Yormani Shai Hulid, Jake groaned. I knew it. He sat on the throne. The stone shifted around him, forming a perfect fit. A pulse shot up through him, warm, powerful, ancient. Throne accepts human host. Weapon systems engaging. Outside, the sky cracked open. The Voidkin descended, but deep beneath the desert, the throne exploded with golden energy. Beams of light shot into the clouds. Mountains trembled. Rivers turned to crystal. The desert awakened. Jake's voice echoed through the ancient system. "This is Jake, and I've had enough." Massive worm-like machines burst from the ground, roaring to life. Cannons formed from sand. Giant blades rose from cliffs. The lost army of the dunes returned, with Jake as their commander. The battle was chaos. Voidkin ships clashed with desert constructs. Thunder and flame filled the skies. But the tide had turned, because the desert had a protector again, a human one. Zara fought beside him. Fierce and proud. Jake used the throne's connection to guide the war machines, every command. Made with his thoughts, his instincts, and a little help from the thing between his legs. After hours of battle, the Voidkin fled. The desert stood quiet. The sand sang, and Jake was crowned the new warden of the dunes. Days later, Jake sat under the stars with Zara, eating roasted sand fruit. "I still can't believe it," he said. "My weird human body saved a planet." Zara smiled. "It didn't just save us. It reminded us what we forgot." Jake raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" She leaned closer. "That sometimes the strangest things have the greatest power." Jake grinned. "Are we still talking about the war?" Zara smirked. "Maybe." They laughed. Then Zara looked him in the eyes and whispered, "Just one more question, human." Jake leaned in. "Yeah?" She tilted her head. "Does your worm have a name?" Jake choked on his fruit. The desert echoed with laughter.